Roger, another of the things I've heard you and Ron especially talk about over the years is this kind of goes to maintenance, is some of the breaches that you were a part of along the mill race. Maybe we can get back to you two, Ron, to get your perspective on this. But I know, Roger, would you talk a little bit about, there was one that I've heard you talk about that was just south of the maintenance building. Describe a little bit about what you recall of that and what that looked like and felt like, and how it was repaired.
Well, just probably 50 yards from the tailgates building, we had a year, I forget what year it was, but we had a lot of rain. I mean, a lot. And the mill race was really filling up. We went down there, we worked at it and worked at it. We couldn't get the gates shut at the head gates. We had this long pole that we used to go out there and we get it down, but we had to beat it down. And this particular time, we could not get it all the way down. Mill race was filling up fast, so we didn't really know what to do. So we got the street department down there, and they brought a backhoe, and we had to breach the bank right down there behind the powerhouse itself. I always called it the powerhouse, but they had to breach that where it could go down to the river. We was going to lose a lot of bank there, a lot of bank. That was scary.
I've heard you talk about how they had to bring in a backhoe, and just kind of perch it there and dig through there and hope it didn't wash down.
Yeah, that was right there where you don't go down the bank where the big wall is. Right there is where they breached it at. And that was really the last thing that they didn't really know what to do. So they told them to go ahead and do it, and we had to almost drain that thing. It was so high. But we was going to lose a lot of it, so yeah, that was scary.
And then that's one of them. And then there was another one I've heard you talk about where it actually did come through on its own on the other side of the maintenance building, I think.
Yeah, that's where you go right up to the hill, right there by our maintenance building. It got real high there, and it started running through the bank there. I think that was caused by a tree that rotted out there. That's why they don't really want trees on the water side. But we had a problem there, and then down by the dam, we had it coming over the bank, and the whole city, even the mayor's secretary, and all of us was down there sandbagging that.
When was that?
When?
Yeah, when was that?
Oh,
more or less. Which mayor was it?
Puro, I think. But we was all down there. The whole city was down there. You remember that? Where it was running right over the bank. We'd go down there, but man, yeah, they've been a few times.
Ron, do you remember details of other breaches?
Well, I don't know about other breaches, but the first one that he talked about that was at the powerhouse was complicated by the fact that the turbine blades in the powerhouse had locked up and they were closed. Which meant there was no way for the water to get through the powerhouse down into the river. And that complicated things a little bit. They had an alarm system set on that thing, so if the water got to a certain height, it would set off an alarm at the fire department, and they were supposed to respond to somebody, and that alarm did not go off. So it was almost over the bank when they had the breach at that end. And basically the water, when the canal breached, the water goes to the river, and it didn't result in any great flooding or anything like that. It just rerouted what it was going to do. You have to remember that they didn't put any lining or anything else. When they dug that thing out, you looked at those first few pictures, they had the horses with the scoops, and they just piled the dirt up on the west bank to make that west bank. And trees have roots, they rot, they leave holes. And then there's this little animal called the muskrat, that created all sorts of holes. And even back through when NIPSCO was in charge of those banks, they had people out there filling holes for muskrats and trying to keep the trees under control. In fact, they knew it was going to seep. If you walk between Murray and the curve down at College Avenue where that storm sewer now comes underneath the race, and there's a ditch there. And that ditch was planned to take the leakage from the canal to the river. So they knew it wasn't going to be watertight. And anybody that lives down that way knows it's not going to be watertight. And you're going to have, it's like living in the river floodplain. You know you're going to get flooded. And we're still building the river plain. And we still patch holes, yeah. But it's, I've seen most of the floods that have been down there, and this last one was the worst one I've seen, but it's not the worst one we've ever had. And if you can imagine that, another 2.5, 3 feet above what we had. That's what they had in 1908. But the river was had a lot more floodplain to go into. We've filled it all in. We filled everything in.
I wanna return to that thought at some point here. Yeah, that's an important tangent. Go ahead, Roger.
I forgot to mention that when we did breach that bank down there, all the water, we got down inside the building, and we got down there and cleaned it out. And then, oh man, I tell you, it was a mess. We busted out the louvers that was down there, where we could get more water flow. We was down there, oh heck, 10, 12 hours. There was all of us down. The whole maintenance crew was down there, and that was a real nasty place to be. I'll tell you. Spiders, snakes, all kind. Oh, you just wouldn't believe it, but we got it taken care of.
And what year was that?
Oh, that's probably 30 years ago. Art Blow was our superintendent.
I'm thinking it was 86, 87, something like that.
86, 87. Okay.
Yeah, about 30 years then. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, a regular function of the Parks Department continues to be pulling, especially biological debris, weeds and duckweed and coontail and stuff out of there, especially at the tailgates. I mean, I know I've been part of that, and everybody who's worked at the Parks Department has to